Monsters are real, and ghosts are real too. They live inside us, and sometimes they win. Stephen King. Imagine a little boy sitting alone in a tiny apartment. The world outside is bright, full of promise. But inside, fear clutches his heart. Not from monsters under the bed, not from imaginary ghosts, but from real monsters. Poverty, abandonment, loneliness. Stephen Edwin King was born on September 21, 1947, in Portland, Maine. His father was a merchant seaman who, one night, went out for cigarettes and never came back. Stephen was just 2 years old. His mother, Nellie Ruth King, suddenly found herself alone, raising 2 boys with no money, no plan, and no safety net. They moved constantly, from one small dusty apartment to another, sometimes with relatives, sometimes on their own, sometimes without enough food on the table. Stephen grew up wearing secondhand clothes, living in government-subsidized housing, and absorbing the quiet shame of poverty. He became introspective, isolated, and incredibly imaginative. Books became his only escape. The first time he discovered the horror genre, an old collection of spooky tales called The Lurker in the Shadows, he was 8 years old. The words terrified him and fascinated him. That fear, he realized, had power, and maybe, just maybe, he could learn to control it. Maybe he could even turn it into something more. But for now, he was just a scared, skinny kid, scribbling monster stories on scraps of paper, dreaming of a world beyond poverty. A world beyond the darkness. Stephen never stopped writing. By the time he was in high school, he had written dozens of short stories, many of which were rejected by every magazine he sent them to. He kept every rejection slip, impaled on a rusty nail above his desk. Eventually, the pile got so heavy he had to replace the nail with a spike. But rejection wasn't the worst part. College brought new struggles: student loans, low-paying jobs, janitor, gas station attendant, laundry worker, constant humiliation. Stephen married Tabitha Spruce, a fellow writer, and together they scraped by, living in a double-wide trailer, barely able to afford groceries. He took a job teaching English at a high school, earning $6,400 a year. Their first child was born, then a second. The bills piled up. The pressure mounted. At night, Stephen would retreat to a tiny laundry room, balancing a typewriter on his lap, and pound out horror stories for a few extra dollars. He was exhausted, broke, and beginning to wonder if maybe the dream had been foolish all along. Then came Carrie. Stephen wrote the beginning of Carrie, a story about a bullied teenage girl with telekinetic powers, and hated it. He threw it in the trash. Tabitha pulled it out, read it, and said, "You have to finish this." So he did. They sent it to Doubleday Publishing. Then came the letter that would change their lives forever. "We want to publish your book." The advance? $2,500. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was hope. A few months later, Stephen sold the paperback rights to Carrie for $400,000. In an instant, they were catapulted from food stamps to fortune. Stephen wept when he heard the news. It wasn't about the money. It was about something far deeper: validation. For the first time, he realized, I am a writer. I am enough. But just as quickly as success came, darkness returned, in a different form. With fame and fortune came temptations. Stephen's workload exploded. He published book after book: Salem's Lot, The Shining, The Stand, Pet Sematary, each more successful than the last. Hollywood came calling. Fans adored him. But inside, Stephen was crumbling. The pressure to produce, the terror of failing again, the gnawing emptiness he had carried since childhood. He turned to alcohol, then cocaine, then pills. Soon, he didn't just write about monsters. He had become one. Stephen later admitted, "I don't remember writing Cujo. Not one word." His addiction spiraled out of control. He alienated friends. He frightened his family. He nearly destroyed everything he had built. It all came to a head one day when Tabitha, his rock, his savior, staged an intervention. She laid out all the bottles, the cocaine vials, the blood-stained tissues. She gave him a choice: get clean or get out. Stephen King chose to live. He entered rehab. He fought tooth and nail against his demons. He rebuilt his life, one painful day at a time. And incredibly, through it all, he never stopped writing. His recovery was messy, slow, grueling, but it birthed a second career even more powerful than the first. Books like Misery, The Green Mile, 11/22/63, written in sobriety, became modern classics. And The Man Who Once Almost Drank Himself to Death became one of the most beloved storytellers in human history. Today, Stephen King's numbers are staggering. Over 400 million books sold, more than 60 novels, published dozens of blockbuster films and TV shows, awards, honors, global fame. But numbers aren't his real legacy. His real legacy is hope. Because Stephen King wasn't born with privilege. He didn't have a famous name. He didn't glide into success. He fought for every single inch. Through poverty, through rejection, through addiction, through fear. He stared down the monsters, inside and out, and refused to back down. His message is simple. You don't have to be fearless to succeed. You just have to be willing to move forward in spite of fear. As King himself said, you can, you should, and if you're brave enough to start, you will. If Stephen King's story struck a chord in your heart today, then remember, your fear is not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're alive. You have monsters inside you. We all do. But monsters can be tamed. Demons can be defeated. Dreams can be realized. If a scared little boy from a broken home can become the king of horror, then what's stopping you? Pick up your dream where you left it. Fight for it like your life depends on it, because it does. Write your book. Start your business. Change your life. The monsters will scream. Ignore them. Your story is waiting. And maybe, just maybe, the world is waiting too.